to introduce Ariana Grande, Francis Hannon, and Nathan Crawley. So, I was telling the crew that many of you have seen this film before, and it's a gift. You know, I feel this film is something that you cherish in a way that you cherish a gift. And I wanted to thank you all for making such an extraordinary gift.
Holy moly. Thank you.
And to kick it off, Ariana, comedy is hard. Comedy in a 2-hour, 40-minute opus that is already part of pop culture is one hell of a challenge. And I'm going to say now that I think your performance is one of the great comedic performances of a generation.
Thank you so much.
And following that, how on earth were you able to give yourself the space to not be overwhelmed by this challenge so you could nail it the way you did?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, thank you so much. That's the most generous question ever in the history of questions. But, you know, I mean, it really all starts with getting to know Glinda because, you know, the only way that comedy works at all is if it's just truthful. You know, it's just another way of telling the truth. So it's getting to know who she is underneath the surface of the bubbliness and the pink and the high notes and the being the center of attention. You know, that comes from somewhere. That comes from a real place of needing that external validation. So why? Who hurt her? Where does that come from? And just kind of getting to know her as a 3D person so that when the jokes are jokes, they're not just supposed to be funny. It's her truth. It's just the natural thing that she would say. You know, when she says, look, it's tomorrow. Yes, that's a silly thing to say, but to her it's something beautiful. And her friend is going through something hard.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know that. She doesn't necessarily know her traumas. She hasn't, I think, had the experiences that Elphaba's had, you know, obviously. So she just does what she knows to do, which is make light. And look, it's tomorrow. It's a brand new day. And it can be honest, and then maybe hopefully it'll be funny. And then, you know, working with John Chu, who was so encouraging of improv and play and taking risks, and that was extraordinary collaboration.
Was there a lot of improv?
Yes, there was. He, you know, John Chu is the most brilliant, meticulous perfectionist of a director. He'll come in with the most elaborate, detailed storyboard of what each second should be, and he'll get that version, of course, but then he'll throw it completely out the window and just say, okay, do whatever Glinda would do. Say whatever Glinda would do. And that trust is what makes for the play to happen and the experimentation and the improv. It's fun, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Francis, the sheer scale, you know, from the main characters to the Ozians, how did you manage to really cycle through all the distinct looks and own them with your own creative vision in the way that you did? Because this is it's a striking film, even more so than I think the theatrical experience is. And we have to doff our cap to you and your team.
Well, certainly the team was amazing. But as Ari's just said, all credit to John Chu, really, because he leaves you so free to experiment, to find what it is that works, to work with Nathan, of course, firstly, because Nathan already starts in advance of us. So you have a track, and our meetings and our color palettes are all decided, and then we just get to work in it. But for me, I call it in life, I put my blinkers on, and I deal with the moments, and the bigger picture always comes true. You always have your big picture, but for the everyday purpose, you take it as it comes. You deal with the green, and then you deal with the munchkins, and you deal with Bok, Ethan.
With bleach. With lots of bleach.
Lots of bleach. Lots of hair. Lots of beautiful long blonde wigs. And the design, and Ari and every artist, Cynthia and everyone, they all brought so much to the plate as well. It's a real organic combination of what everybody brings as their characters. I mean, and then bringing that out to John and making it immersive and real to the audience so that they feel that they're part of it and not ever removed from it. It wasn't a fantasy. It was a reality, wasn't it? Every day.
It really was. Thanks to you both. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. Well, I mean, you know, I've been lucky enough to spend the last however many 45 years with them. Just kidding. But no, I mean, their brilliance and thoughtfulness is truly what allows for this to feel as real as it did. You know, on the day, here today on the screen, you know, it's just, you two are icons. Like, it's really extraordinary. And me and Cynthia, we spend all day talking about the two of you and what you've done to allow for this to exist. It's just like otherworldly, you know. Our very first hair and makeup meeting, the first time I was allowed to come into the room with all of your vision, whatever you call them, to see the mock-ups of what it was going to be. The war room.
Yeah,
yes.
that's Saturday.
It's
I
just
remember you guys came in, yeah.
It's just you guys. It
was all of us. Everyone was together. It was beautiful.
It was so beautiful. I'm just in awe of them. Sorry. I wasn't even, no one was even talking to me. My bad.
It's all right. Nathan, I got to ask you about the toys. The engineering feats that were seen throughout the set, whether it's the mask of the wizard or the library that looks like some incredible invention.
Yeah.
Do they still exist? Can we have them? And how did you make them?
Well, they're sort of story driven. I remember. With John, I spent a lot of time with John Chu, who is not only wonderful, he's so generous. He's just an amazing person. But he always wanted to push and push and push and push, which he was right. We have to go somewhere new. We have to take you lot, you wonderful people, somewhere where you believe Oz and you give up to it and you fall into the screen and you don't notice it. And you're looking at Ari, and you're looking at the actors, and you're looking at the costumes, and we need to get far enough along. So back to your question about the spinning wheels. They were called the tornado wheels, but I never loved that name. I always thought I love things that move, especially sets. It's even from the sort of Jamiroquai floor that rolls around, you know, things in my youth, James Bond, things move. I just like fascinated by, it's going to move, you know, rotating rooms, space stations. So it was like, we're going to introduce Fierro. And it's like, he's got to be the coolest kid at school, the coolest man at school. And he has to have the coolest thing. And so that's where it started. And it was like, well, why don't we do some spinning wheels, you know? And then John was saying, well, we should do one this way and one that way. And the ladders should move independently. And it was like...
Wow.
And then we hadn't even designed the library. And it was like, it doesn't matter. The wheels are the library. And the rest of the room would come to it. But they all move, and the idea, although it doesn't, the original idea was the ladders line up in the O and create a Z, so you get Oz. We always have something in the art department where it's just something that keeps us, like, it's just our little Easter egg. And but it's for Fierro. That wheel was for Fierro.
Watch the movie again, Ariana.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how are we still discovering little details about the thoughtfulness that every single layer? It was just like so masterful and so genius and thoughtful and intentional, and that's insane, Nathan.
I know. But
What's wrong with
fun.
you?
And if everything felt weighty, you know, with practical and VFX, obviously, there seemed to be a lot of practice. It felt like you could feel.
Well, that's our brilliant special effects team, who I think are part of my art department. They sort of belong to visual effects a little bit. But they're engineers, and Paul Corbett and his team, you know, spun these 10-ton rings, and they have them on big wheel systems, and they're all hidden. And he has all the control of them. You know, we go back for a year. We flew planes on Dunkirk Beach. You know, he would make the things that team can do. So spinning wheels, I love going into a shop because the engineers will be like, yeah, sure, how big, you know.
Love it. Thank you. Right, Ariana, thank you. Ariana, I watched Wicked with my 6-year-old daughter, my 4-year-old daughter, and my wife. And in the Ozdos dance scene, I looked to my family and we were all in tears. And I think that scene in this world that is very angry right now is a scene that a lot of us needed. And what you do as Glinda in that scene, I think a lot of us needed to see. And it's become a comfort blanket for millions of people. And I want to ask you, when you shot that scene, did you understand maybe what it could do to so many of us folks that felt what you and Cynthia gave?
You know, I don't know if I even considered what might be on the other end of it, you know, because we're trying to just be so present in the moment and honest together. My main concern was her. And how can I take this pain on? How can I reverse what I've contributed to? You know, before that scene at the Ozdos Ballroom, Glinda's biggest fear is being in that exact position where people are not approving of her or where people are laughing at her, pointing fingers, God forbid, you know. And I think in that moment it changes abruptly to her biggest fear being hurting someone like that ever again, or not listening to that voice inside that said, don't give the hat, that's mean, you know, because that is there for her before she gives it. I don't think she really wanted to give it. But, you know, it's a question, Wicked raises a question of once we know the truth, what do we do with it, really? And I think in that moment, Elphaba holds up a mirror for her and invites her very generously to change just by looking at her the way that she is. It's an invitation to become better, to pop that first layer of the bubble of privilege and look outside herself for maybe the first time in her little privileged life. You know, it's a pivotal moment for them both, but also it's a question of growth of the human experience. How can we become more and more good, better allies, better friends, better humans? And we get braver and braver and braver as we go. And that moment for her, she can't possibly go back from. So, yeah, I don't. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. I think we can all agree that this film is I guess we had, you know, Oppenheimer and Barbie last year, and you know, this is a cultural phenomenon, and to be part of the orchestra of collaborative talent that is filmmaking, and we have 3 extraordinary souls here. Now, I know tomorrow is the Oscar nominations, and you are on this amazing awards run and season already. But I would love all 3 of you to maybe express to yourselves and this audience, what moment does your inner child come out in this experience where you're like speaking to that inner child?
Nathan, you first.
Okay. I've seen this film a lot, and every time I watch it, there's a moment in the film that just knocks my socks off. Actually, it's about an hour, and it's when you guys get off the train and you do One Short Day, and we spin around and we go through those arches into night, into Wizardmania, and around that fountain, it's magical, and I'm even though I know and I remember every day and every brick and every moment of paint on that set, and films are usually, when I watch them, are about the process, because they're so full of memory, and it took me away you guys took me away and that silhouette of you two going from day to night in the crowd, and it was just brilliant. And you know, and what John did, because that fountain was last minute, John came to me and said, "Can you build me a fountain?" And we were like 4 weeks from shoot, and said, "Can you make a fountain that maybe spins?" And chance you could do flowers that open and a balloon that come out the top, and we have water, and it was like, yeah.
Wow.
We're like, of course.
Yeah, we've got to do it. And of course, you've got, and that sort of optimism of that set, because it was the very last set we shot, and I think I can say that we're all pretty tired, and we were all like, the crews were like, been through 2 film shoots, and that sort of, that just made my day. In fact, every time I see the film.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. Sounds like you're a fan.
Yeah.
Francis?
I have to say the same moment completely. It's so wonderful, the whole sequence, right from the stepping off the train. But also, I absolutely delight every moment the scene in the library happens. It just makes me spring inside. I love it. It was such a happy week, wasn't it? Yeah. Every day standing there, all day, every day. You couldn't help but dance and tap your feet and sing. I couldn't ever dance in front of anybody, but that was me. But watching these guys it was joyous, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to pick a moment because I feel like the entire experience was such a homecoming to my younger self that got maybe a little disconnected along the way, or kind of like, wait, come back. And then, just kind of, the whole experience for me felt like a homecoming, like when Elphaba grabs the broom at the end. It really felt like that for me. But I don't know if I can pick just one. That's a really hard, that's the hardest question yet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Marinate
Pass.
on it. And,
Pass.
The journey you've been on as an artist, and film and music can be great marriages, but in many ways it can also be different art forms. I wanted to really ask it in terms of the musicality of the numbers, and how whether it's a different discipline to, obviously you've grown up with music. Did you have to rewire how you perform for this sort of work?
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of been a little back and forth exchange for the entirety of my professional career. I started on Broadway, and I was in a show written by Jason Robert Brown, and Jason Robert Brown loves to write the hardest music for human beings to sing ever. It's like, if you say this is your highest note, he'll put in a few that are higher. And I think that kind of taught me at a very young age to kind of keep up with a certain schedule and build a stamina. And I think that helped me tour, which then came back to helping me be able to do singing and dancing at the same time, whatever it is. But with Glinda, the vocal track is just so different than what I usually sing. So it required a lot of vocal training. 2.5 to 3 months before my very first audition, I started working on it with my incredible vocal coach, Eric Vitro. I love him so much. And Eric Vitro. Yes, and I was at his house every day, and my acting coach, Nancy Banks, who's an incredible human being and healer. And I just wanted to make sure that the vocal would sound authentic, like soprano, operatic, coloratura, Galinda, because the track is so different to what I usually sing. So even if my voice is high or sits in a higher register, or I have, whatever it is, it's a different technique entirely. So the muscles take time to adjust, and I trained every day, and then after the first audition, I still trained every day. After the second audition, I still trained every day. And after my third final thing, I collapsed into a pile. No, I'm kidding. and we just waited it out, and then thank goodness we're here.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Francis, you took some inspiration, I believe, from Grace Kelly on visually.
We did for our beautiful Galinda. It was very much in our early days that John had always said he wanted to be old Hollywood. He wanted everything to be tangible for the artists. We were working as true to size-wise in life as we could. And I found great inspiration with Grace Kelly, thinking of Galinda, and particularly when given the beauty of Ari here, and the radiance and the inner beauty, that I felt that Grace Kelly had that in old Hollywood. And I think it really touched, I think John saw it in the research I did. And it wasn't to make you Grace Kelly, it was to bring that basic simplicity of her beauty to you, and then you carried it and took it and ran with it. And Ari worked every single day on every single look she had. Had a really strong input. We had short, blonder, warmer hair for young, long, ethereal hair for once she was with the wizard. There was a huge subliminal change in not only Ari and every single character in there that was there for the audience to come to immerse in, but you don't always see it first go. Hence all the times we need to watch this one, because every time you see something new, like an Oswald. Yeah. Yeah. So true, isn't it, though, Ari?
It's really overwhelming.
Nathan, it's not an Easter egg, but right at the beginning, when you see the original Wizard of Oz characters, right at the very, very beginning, I just got all giddy, and it made me think about the fact that we've all seen the Wizard of Oz. It's kind of imprinted into us in a really interesting way. For you, did you feel that you had to look towards all the way back when there as an some sinew of inspiration, or was it more the theatrical version of Wicked?
How did it start? I guess John and Mark called me. John called me. I had a great meeting with him. Then Mark called me to check that I was really into theatre, and I'm a cinephile. I love cinema. So he immediately made me go and see Wicked endlessly. But I, of course, when I think back to my childhood, I always, of course, think I used to watch The Wizard of Oz every year with my dad. And the sort of naivety I went into this film, and then I suddenly realised it was like, I've got to design Oz and the Emeralds. And worse,
no pressure.
I've got to take that painted view of the 39 film of the Emerald City that is so brilliantly done, and make it and go inside it. I've got to go to the backing and cross it. And so, but I think I've been on this crazy musical adventure because before that I'd made a lot of, a lot of quite big, serious films. And then I did The Greatest Showman, and that opened a door to music and song and dance and design and color that was unexpected. And so this challenge came exactly at the right time. I thought I've got to open a new door in my career, and it was just we had to get Oz right. And we'd spend hours talking about theories of the impassable desert and where everything is and what Kiamiko is and all these sort of theories, and the idea that the Grimmery is the land, and Shiz is the sort of soul of the unity of Oz, and the Emerald City is the time of the wizard. And so we sort of came up with our in our little planning room that you guys saw with all our theories that allow us to step into the design. They don't play in the film because the narrative and the story are the story, but they help us find an Oz that hopefully will take you away. And that's all I ever want, is to sit on these rows here and fall into a film. And I think this might be my favorite film I've ever made.
Wow. A very quick final question. All of the people here look up to all of you, and you really are the pinnacle of your chosen profession. And I always like to ask people this, because sometimes life has peaks and troughs. Quickly, what gives all three of you hope? What gives you hope in the art that you do, whether it's music, film, design, makeup? Is there anything that just reminds you how much you love what you do?
I think conversations like this, just connecting with humans who are sharing the same experience and responding to the art, it gives endless hope. And meeting young creative people who want to share or create because of something that you did or whatever it is, just kind of sharing that connection of loving art and being able to tell stories with people. It's beautiful. I love connecting, and exactly this right now.
Wonderful.
What about you?
My hope would be that there'd be more films like Wicked made, because there are so few, and maybe none, actually. And directors like John Chu, because they make a huge difference to our film, our world, and how we are allowed to develop as designers with directors like John and artists.
Thank you.
We love you, Francis.
I don't know. I think for me, it's just about the emotion. If you go to an art gallery and you're at that place and you see a Rothko, and it's just like, wow. It's like, these people are good, you know, and it always makes me think I'm shit. It's like, but it's a good, like, to go and see something. Sometimes you disconnect, and it's just like, and you don't know why. And, you know, the film is great for that. I mean, there's some... What did I just see? I just saw I'm Still Here, which really, like, knocked my socks off, too. And it's great that that film can exist alongside this. And it's great. I mean, it's just... We're really lucky to do this. I feel like I've been very lucky in my life. So.
Thank you. Ariana, Francis, Nathan, you've created a masterpiece. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
all.
much for having